All right, West Virginia fans. Crazy, wild game today for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Ultimately, they fell short. This one's going to be tough to take in. There were so many opportunities for a chance to win this one, but ultimately, it's an L. Tonight, we'll talk about the missed opportunities that took place today for West Virginia Mountaineers. They had a bunch of chances to take hold of this one and get the W, but ultimately, that didn't happen. So on tonight's show, we'll take a deep dive into this one and what went right, what went wrong, where West Virginia goes from here. Before we do that, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We're really approaching that 500 subscriber number, so I appreciate it. Let's get into the show. Before we start, got a comment from Coop. It said, Rich lost us the game, not kicking the field goal. We're going to talk about that tonight, Coop. There was a lot of things that happened in this one that we can look back on. And I know it's a frustrating loss, but I think there's a lot of positives to take from this one. And we'll break down all those things that you're talking about in this one. So again, the title is called Missed Opportunities because there was a bunch of missed opportunities for the West Virginia Mountaineers in this one. Let's break down the stats before we begin. So you can see here, game comparison, West Virginia had a fighting shot in this one. Total yards, 421 to 330. West Virginia in the second half really took control of the game. Arizona State in the first half, especially the second quarter, had a huge second quarter, looked really, really strong. But West Virginia, second half-wise, looked really good. And even in the first quarter, they looked really strong. Passing yards, 353 passing yards for West Virginia. Really big positive to take out of this game for West Virginia. The rushing yards, though, was a major issue. 68 rushing yards. If we don't get 100 rushing yards, I feel like that's going to be an L. If there's one thing that we need to fix as a West Virginia Mountaineer unit, we need to get the rushing game going. If Rich Rodriguez is going to do his thing and if he's going to change the program, they have to run the ball. And when the offense is rushing the ball effectively, you can see the potential of the offense. When we're not rushing the ball, you can see what happens. So tonight, we did not rush the ball effectively, and that ultimately hurt us. Penalties were pretty similar, although ours were a lot bigger. Fred Perry had 2 back-to-back penalties that cost us 30 yards, which definitely hurt. First downs were pretty even. Third downs were exactly even. We were just 1 for 4 on fourth downs. They were 0 for 1. Total plays, 70 to 67. So overall, it was a very even game. The thing that we should really highlight is the red zone, right? We were 2 for 4 in the red zone, and that's going to be the highlight of this game is the missed opportunities in the red zone. When you had that many chances to score in the red zone and you come away with the points that we had, especially early in that game, it's not gonna end well for us. So the red zone missed opportunities is the thing that hurt us the most. So if you're watching this, I'm sure you know that, and we're going to break all that down tonight. Time of possession was pretty even. We had 1 turnover apiece. Ours was on a fourth down that Fred Perry got on a fumble. And sacks, we had 1. They had 3. And total tackles for loss were even. So this was a really close game between 2 really banged-up teams. The difference, though, is Arizona State still has a fighting chance in the Big 12, where West Virginia now is going to fail to make a bowl game, unfortunately. But overall, there was a lot of positives to take from this one. I know it stinks to lose, and I know we want to win in St. Country Roads every single week, but 25-23, they showed fight, which a couple weeks ago, if we would have been honest with ourselves after the UCF game and what we saw against Utah, you thought this team was cooked and done, right? So they showed fight tonight. They battled with a very good Arizona State team and came up just short. And there's a lot of things that, looking back on it, if we could take back, could we have done things differently? Possibly. But overall, I think there's more positives than negatives in this one, even through a loss, truthfully. So we're going to break all that down tonight. See any other comments tonight? Eric Flowers said, the outcome sucked, but it was an exciting game. Team doesn't give up. Yeah, Eric, I think that's the biggest thing for me. Some losses hurt more than others. And I think for me, I'm okay with this one. It is what it is. We were really close to blocking that kick, but this one doesn't sting as some of the other losses that we've seen in the past, right? The Oklahoma State loss a few years ago when Greer was there, and the Pitt loss last year. This loss kind of is what it is. I mean, there was a long shot that we were going to win next in 2 weeks versus Texas Tech anyway. I wanted to win this one. I wanted that game to mean something in a few weeks. And obviously, we want to win every game. But the fact that this team showed fight and battled through a difficult season and was battling to the end showed a lot about this team and a lot about Rich Rodriguez and his players' respect for him. And I think, like I said, there's more positives than negatives to take out of this game. Really appreciate the comments, guys, coming in. All right, let's talk about the stat lines here, the individual stats here from both teams. So we can see here Scotty Fox, 353 yards for Scotty Fox, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He continues to get more comfortable. I know there was a few moments in this game that Rich Rod was definitely on him. If you're a good lip reader, which I definitely am, he had some choice words a few times for Scotty Fox, but ultimately another 300-yard day against a really tough Arizona State defense. We had a lot of explosive plays in this one, so I think as a freshman, this is all good news for West Virginia to watch your freshmen continue to get better each and every week. A few weeks ago, we were playing musical chairs and we couldn't figure out who our quarterback was. Now you've given Scotty Fox, this is his 4th start, and twice he's thrown over for 300 yards against some pretty good competition. You know, we've played TCU, Houston, Colorado, and now Arizona State. So some good competition there, and he's done some decent things here. He's not perfect by any means, and he still has a lot of growing to do, but I'm very encouraged with what Scotty Fox has done. Then you can see the rushing game, which really struggled today. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, when we struggle to run the ball, it's going to be very difficult for West Virginia to get their offense going. So we struggled in that area, but a lot of explosive plays in the receiver game. Jeffrey Weimer, a massive day. It's a shame that we only have Jeffrey Weimer for one more game at this point, because he's a guy that continues to get better, does all the right things off the field as a leader on the team. It's just a shame that he's only going to be a 1-year player for West Virginia. Kind of got a late start getting there. Cam Vaughn had another nice day, 3 catches for 79 yards. Grayson Barnes got in the action. So some guys did some different things, and obviously the Sincere Bowers catch and run today was impressive, right? We've been waiting for Sincere Bowers to do something like that all year. We've seen flashes of it. We've seen hints of it. But today you saw his full potential on that play, and he's a young guy. I think he has a chance to continue to get better. So it was cool to see Sincere Bowers do some things today, because he's a guy that I would like to retain for the future, because I think with his speed, his future is bright in Morgantown. Let's see if we have any other comments rolling in. Eric Flowers said, we were expected to lose by 12.5. I'm not mad or hurt either. I'm just glad to see how hard they played. And I think that's the biggest thing you have to take out of this, Eric, is how hard they played. When Rich Rodriguez came to West Virginia, he made a promise to the fans that this team is going to play hard. This team is going to be hard edge. And they've shown that. You know, I think from the first whistle to the final whistle, they kept battling today. Even when they got down by 12 and things were looking grim, they found ways to make plays and make this a game. So we have to be a little bit optimistic about this loss. I know it sucks to lose, and I know we don't like participation trophies as Mountaineer fans, but if we take this season as a whole and you look how we've played the last 4 games, there's a lot more positives than negatives to take from it. So I agree with you. You know, it sucks to lose, but I'm encouraged by what I saw today from West Virginia. I really am. Coop said, how about the women's basketball team, though? Hey, man, shout out to them. You know, I don't really talk much about women's basketball on here, but that was super impressive that was super impressive what they did yesterday. Absolutely. Amit Batra, my good friend, commenting, Bowers deserves the W. Amit, if you want to hop on the show, let me know in the comments. I can send you the link, buddy, if you want to hop on. Bowers, man, I thought that was going to be a signature moment for Sincere Bowers tonight. It kind of stinks. It kind of reminds me of that the play last year with the kid from Mississippi State that made the play in the end zone. He caught the ball one-handed, and then West Virginia ended up losing that game. And that play is almost forgotten about. But Sincere Bowers, man, for one play, 90 yards, it really showed his athleticism. It showed what he could do. Like I said, if you want to hop on, let me know. I'll send you the link for sure. Eric Flowers said that has to. Eric Flowers said, hold on one second. He said that has to help the squad when the team gets ejected and you win with only 5 players. Yeah, going back to the women's basketball players, Mark Kellogg, what he did, man, with the coach leaving the year before and how he's picked up the team, and West Virginia almost seems like they got an upgraded coach is super impressive. I watched the women's team versus Iowa a few years ago, and they got robbed in that game, in my opinion. The fouls were so lopsided in that game, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Shout out to Kellogg. Shout out to the women's basketball team. They're doing some great things. That made national news. ESPN was talking about that this morning. So the fact that they went to the Greenbrier and battled versus Duke and won the game with 5 players is super impressive. Coop said Kellogg is a dog. I don't know. Maybe I need to start talking about more women's basketball on this show. they're stealing the spotlight. Eric Flowers said, "Did you see Pat McAfee on Game Day today saying sweet Caroline?" I absolutely did. I almost didn't want to watch College Game Day today because it was at Pitt. And truthfully, the only reason I did it is because McAfee was on it. And if McAfee wasn't on it, I probably would have just tuned it out and watched the other channel. But I wanted to see how Pat McAfee reacted. And you already know he was going to pick Notre Dame today, right? You already know, as a West Virginia fan, who he was choosing. So it was fun to see him kind of troll the Pitt fans. But I'm sure that was a difficult show to do this week because he is such a diehard West Virginia fan and a former West Virginia player. It's just a pride thing. Our teams are winning. Absolutely, Eric. I really agree with you and appreciate your comments. All right, let's get into my notes from the game and back to this show. So first quarter, I thought things were on the right track. I thought I was very encouraged with the defense. They got 2 3-and-outs to start the game, which is what you needed to do. Before the game started this week, I said West Virginia really needs to start fast. If they went behind Arizona State early, I didn't like their chances to be competitive in this game. So the first quarter was really nice that they got 2 3-and-outs to start the game and gave their offense a chance. They outgained Arizona State 114-29. So it almost reminds me of the game last week, right, where against Colorado, we really owned them in the first quarter, but then in the second quarter, they started to figure things out, and they owned that second quarter. That's kind of been the case the last 3 weeks, really. We owned the first quarter versus Houston. We owned the first quarter versus Colorado. And then tonight versus Arizona State, we owned the first quarter. But then second quarter, we've really struggled. It's like the teams have figured out Zach Alley's defense, and then their quarterbacks starting getting comfortable, and they start getting hot. So that's kind of been the theme for the last 3 weeks. Good starts for West Virginia, really bad second quarters, and then after halftime's kind of somewhere in the middle. Design quarterback runs were working in the beginning of the game, especially in that first drive. They were doing the read option play with Scotty Fox, and they got some successful things out of it. And then the big thing in red was the missed opportunities in the red zone. I think to start the game off, they had 3 opportunities in the red zone and only scored 3 points. So that was definitely a struggle for the West Virginia Mountaineers tonight. When you're playing on the road, you need to score touchdowns in the red zone. Obviously, I'm sure you guys are going to want to talk about the decision to take the points or not take the points. The first time they took the points, and then the second time they didn't. When I personally play online, and I'm not a college coach or anything like that, and Rich Rod is a way better football mind than I am, I usually do take the points because you're winning the game. And I never want to look back on a game and look back at, man, we should just kick the field goal there. So personally, it's hard, right? Because Rich Rod has a certain way, has the hard edge mentality. We're 1 yard away. We're going to run the football. But sometimes taking the points doesn't hurt you either. Could have had an early 6-0 lead. We ended up losing by 2. Hindsight's always 50-50, but ultimately it is what it is. Either way, there were missed opportunities in the red zone, and that ultimately made us lose this game, right? If we score touchdowns in the red zone, we win this game. We didn't, and that's the reason why we lost. And that even goes back to the fourth quarter. Coop's optimistic for next year. Says next year we're going 10-2. Coop, I'll tell you what, man. I'm optimistic. I think that no matter what happens in the Texas Tech game, I think there's a lot of positives for how the team has played the last month of the season. With that being said, I can't put any expectations on this team until we see who they retain and who we see we get in the portal. So I'm hoping that this next week's going to be massive for West Virginia, right, Coop? Because they have a bye week coming up, and they're going to have early conversations, I'm sure, with guys and say, are you coming back? What's your plan? Here's our offer to you. There's going to be a lot of conversations to be had this week during the bye week. Don't really love the position of the bye week, truthfully. I would love to just get the last game out of the way, especially because we know our fate. Get the last game out of the way, keep the momentum going because I still think we're playing strong and we're still playing hard. Then have those conversations. But I know for a fact that West Virginia this week is going to have those conversations with players and try to get ahead of it and see what happens. Coop also said Miles Sadler commits tomorrow. Fingers crossed, him, Kevin Brown, a lot of different players right now could really change the fortune of West Virginia. So tomorrow's a big day for West Virginia, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff later in the show. And he said, I think the dogs stay. Yeah, Eric, you know what? I think that if you're a kid, right, and you're at West Virginia right now, the grass is not always greener. Let's be honest, man. Look at a guy like Traylon Ray, right? Traylon Ray. The last time I checked on Traylon Ray, he doesn't have a catch this season for Ole Miss. So, man, West Virginia could have really used Traylon Ray this year. He would have been a nice piece in our offense, right? If we would have had Traylon Ray coming back. So the grass is not always greener. We've seen a bunch of guys leave to go to better spots, and they don't always do better. Sometimes they never see the field again. I mean, look at Jacoby Spells this past season. He was a guy that was a 4-star recruit coming into West Virginia, hits the portal, doesn't even have a home, is not even playing football right now, is like retired from the game. So, you better think about before you leave a Power 4 program if you can play. And then Coop said Hudson Clement, again, that's another one. He doesn't have that bad of stats, to be honest with you, but I think he was better designed to be at West Virginia. I think that if he would stay here, he'd probably be the number 2 receiver. And again, we can go back to guys like Winston Wright. Granted, he had some injuries off the field and things like that, but did Winston Wright end up having a better situation than he did when he was at West Virginia? I don't know about that. There was a few years ago, we had a kid that went to Auburn, and he was like All-American at West Virginia and then transferred to Auburn and never did anything. So the grass is not always greener. I think we're building something, and I just think that Rich Rodriguez, he holds the players accountable, and I think his relationships with the players, I just have a feeling that a lot of the guys are going to come back. I'm not as worried or concerned as I was during the Neil Brown years about losing players, but either way, money talks, so I'm still going to be nervous leading up to the next few weeks, but those are all good points by you guys. There you go. Thank you, Mountaineer Athletics. Deshaun Miller. That's the guy I was talking about, right? He went to Auburn and never saw the field again or barely did anything, and he was a guy that was an all Big 12 player. And, dude, if you just stay at West Virginia, like, you could have been something. Same thing with, like, Winston Wright. A lot of these guys leave, and, again, Coop said C.J. Donaldson only has 278 yards. I know they're using him for short yardage, but could you imagine C.J. in our offense? Again, at West Virginia, you have to understand you're at a place where you could win the Big 12 potentially. You have a starting spot. You're at a Power 4 program. Just stay put. You have like guaranteed playing time. You're a star. The fans are going to love you. There's no need to transfer. Mountaineer Athletics said Miller and Porter Jr. both left and didn't see the field and didn't do anything. They were major pieces for us. Yeah. And when you lose guys like that, your depth definitely takes a piece. And I think as a West Virginia fan, I think that's why we're so paranoid all the time, because year after year, we've seen our best players leave. And I think that's why we're going to be stressed this next week and after the Texas Tech game. And we're going to be checking Twitter and Instagram all the time to see which players leave and which players stay, because we know the effects that it has. And you can say all you want, but like losing a player like Hakeem Ezador hurts. Losing Tyke Smith, those guys are like irreplaceable. We haven't been able to replace those guys. So some mean more than others, but back to the original point, I do think that we'll be able to retain a lot of these guys because Rich Rodriguez has a vision. And I think if you've watched the way that this team is bought in, it's encouraging. Even though we lost tonight, we were right there in this game. And this team looks way different than it did against UCF. It looks way different than it did versus BYU and Utah. This team has really turned the corner. I would love to play those teams again if we had a chance because I think it could possibly go the other way, especially if we had all the people. Yeah, so Coop said Vicarious Farmer. He actually is hurt right now, so I want to defend him. He was a 4-star, went to UCF, but he's actually injured this year. I think he was out for the season to start off the season, so his career is definitely still up in the air, but I know West Virginia didn't do much with him last year anyway. He said, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of our previous players come back. Yeah, Eric, that's a really good point, now that we're on this topic. I would love a Traylon Ray back. I would absolutely love to see him come back. I would have loved to see Winston Wright come back. I know that he was in the portal before he went to East Carolina. There's no place like home, right? And David Sills came back, don't forget, right? David Sills is a guy that wanted to play quarterback, went to community college, figured out quarterback wasn't for him, comes back and plays wide receiver, and look what happened to him at wide receiver. He was an NFL player, right? He's still in the NFL. He's still floating around the NFL 6 or 7 years later and put up one of the greatest West Virginia seasons that we've ever seen. So sometimes you can't underrate the opportunity that you have at West Virginia. Look what we've done with like Steve Slayton, Tavon Austin, and guys like that. If you're a talented player, we're still a Power 4 program. We still take pride in this thing. You could still win here and put up big numbers and make it to the NFL. We're talking about Trotter. So let's move on to the second quarter notes. We got on a tangent there. All right. So second quarter was probably West Virginia's worst quarter of this game. The read option gave West Virginia major trouble in this one. There was a few times that you saw Jamori Robinson back there with the quarterback, and he keyed on the running back, but didn't key on the quarterback, and Sims got loose. Sims I think he tied his career for touchdowns in a game in the second quarter alone with 3 touchdowns. And at a point in the second quarter, it looked like they were just playing pitch and catch out there. And he looked super comfortable. And like I said, it gave me flashbacks to last week versus Colorado. If you remember in that Colorado game, first quarter, we dominated Colorado in the first quarter. But then Julian Lewis, second quarter, was playing pitch and catch, got comfortable. Same thing happened tonight with Jeff Sims. They put up 3 touchdowns, and that's what really changed the game. We had to play from behind after that. And then the other negative is Arizona State's 2-point conversion. We end up losing this game by 2 points. Now, there's a lot of decisions that happened after that would have changed and everything, but man, the special teams, you don't want to hurt yourself on special teams on the road with a team that's banged up and a team where we are at, where we know that our most talented guys aren't out there yet, and it's going to get better, but you can't give any freebies. So giving up even an extra 2 points on the conversion today kind of stunk, and we ended up losing by 2 points. But then, I was asking myself during the second quarter, I said, okay, West Virginia hasn't played from behind in a while. We've started fast the last few games, and we haven't seen this team battle back. So they get down by 2 scores, they're down 15-3, and all of a sudden you blink, Fox to Weimer, 75-yard touchdown, longest touchdown of the season before the other one broke it tonight. That was super encouraging. Fox threw a dime to Weimer, and like I said on the top of the show, Weimer's a guy that I wish we had longer because he's getting better each game. He looks comfortable each game. So that stinks that he's not gone. He's going to be gone. Yeah, Coop, right here. So Weimer doesn't have any more years left. He's one of those guys that had to even fight for a waiver this season to even get an extra year of eligibility. Did some great things at his prior school, but ultimately he's going to be moving on after this year because he's out of eligibility, which is a shame because he's a guy that has really improved each week and has stayed patient and is a good locker room guy. It's a shame that we only have one more game with Weimer. But with that being said, he's talented, but man, if you go out there in the portal and get a guy that is similar to him or even better than him, what can you do when the offensive line is right and things like that? But those are my second quarter notes. Second quarter was by far the worst quarter we had in this game. All right, let's talk about the third quarter. So I'm not sure if you guys saw this, and let me know in the comments. I felt like there was a missed call on the Ryan Ward attempt for a touchdown. Scotty Fox, it looked like he did like a read option play, and he was trying to get it to Ryan Ward, and it looked like Ryan Ward got held. He literally fell on the ground, and there was no penalty called. That hurt us. That ultimately we didn't score because of that, and we ended up going for it and not getting it. So not having that holding call on Ryan Ward definitely hurt. And then the broadcast, I love TNT. I really do, and I've praised them. I think they're awesome, but they had an error in this game. They kept saying that West Virginia's tight end room doesn't have a touchdown this season. But if you remember, Grayson Barnes had that touchdown in the Pitt game, right? I think that tied the game. Nico Markio went down the field and threw it up to Grayson Barnes. So we do have a touchdown in that room. So that was an error on their part. And then again, 4th and goal, just short with Curtis Jones. He was about an inch away. And then after that, West Virginia has them pinned back. Fred Perry gets back-to-back penalties. And I saw some people hating on Fred Perry. And I don't know if you should be hating on Fred Perry. That's kind of what you get with this guy, right? You're going to get a targeting penalty. You're going to get a face mask because he's playing hard. You're going to get a late hit. But that's how Fred Perry plays. And I'm not going to be one to say, is Fred Perry a waste? It's too much. Like, that's how the dude plays. You take it or you leave it. You win with it or you die with it. So it is what it is. He had two plays that cost us like 30 yards back to back, but Fred Perry is a dog and he has made more plays than he hasn't this year. Yes, he has had some missed tackles. Yes, he's had some bad penalties, but he is a guy that's going to go down as one of the hardest players that West Virginia has had. So I'm not going to be tough on Fred Perry, even after back-to-back penalties. And then right after that, even after people were tweeting and hating on him, he comes up with a fumble recovery on that 4th down, which was huge for West Virginia. So his penalties ended up not even hurting us in that situation. And then another bad play call or a bad play that hurt West Virginia was the shanked punt by Oliver Straw. It looked like he actually got hurt on that play. I'm not sure what happened there. I think it was a punt for like 20 yards. So you cannot do that when you're on the road, right? We talked about the 2-point conversion that Arizona State had, and then you shank a punt. You're really shooting yourself in the foot if you have bad special teams play for a team like West Virginia that is down to their 3rd or 4th string quarterback and their 3rd or 4th string running back and things like that. All right, let's get to the 4th quarter. So there was, again, a lot more positives than negatives in the 4th quarter. The block punt by Greg Genros, which was awesome to see. Greg Genros has been a guy that was the number 1 tight end JUCO player in the country and hasn't done much offensively. And he almost blocked the second kick tonight too. So shout out to him. It was nice to see Genros make a play in the West Virginia uniforms. I'm very happy for him. Mountaineer Athletics said it. He said, yeah, it's hard to hate on Perry. We probably wouldn't even be in the same games without him. He's the real deal. Yeah, I'm not going to hate on Fred Perry like that. I'm sorry. I saw a tweet from someone that said, is it even worth it to have Fred Perry? It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that guy's been the heart and soul of the defense. He's the leader on defense. I'll give him a pass. He had 2 plays where he was playing hard. He had a face mask because he was flying to the ball, and he picked up a guy, and at the last second slammed him, and they called a penalty. The guy plays with a 100% effort all the time. He's going to have penalties. It is what it is. You take it or leave it with him. But ultimately, I'd rather have him than not have him. I disagree with the guy's tweet that had that. And then touchdown by Curtis Jones. Again, he's been an effective running back down by the goal line. It's really too bad we don't have Ty Edwards because that would have been like a Ty Edwards situation, Pitt legend. Oxley, he's another guy that has made some really nice plays back-to-back weeks. He had a really great play on that read option play where he made the tackle and had a huge loss for the West Virginia Mountaineers. You go back to last week against Julian Lewis, he pulled his hair and had the sack. So in back-to-back weeks in the 4th quarter of games, Oxley has stepped up, and I think he has years of eligibility left. That's a player in the future that you can win with, which is a good sign. Preston Fox continues to do good things in the return game. Back-to-back years, Preston Fox is someone that we can trust returning punts, which is great. And then Sincere Bowers, like I mentioned earlier, the 90-yard touchdown play that he had making people miss. And you can see the getup. Once he was able to gain speed and gain traction and go, you saw the 4.3 speed that we've been waiting to see all season. We've seen it a little bit versus Robert Morris and glimpses versus Kansas, but tonight on a 90-yard run, I think that you might see him do more things in the future. I was super excited to see that. And then ultimately, that 2-point conversion really hurt us because we ended up losing because of that. We tried to run it to, I think, Curtis Jones. That was tough, not making that. I kind of had a feeling was going to come back to bite us just based on how Arizona State could move the ball. And then they called it roughing the passer on Siders. I'm kind of mixed on that. It sucks that it happened, but he did hit him low and he did hit him late, and that's going to get a penalty, be called a penalty all the time. And that really sucked that happened at that point in the game. And then the last thing is, you know what? Again, I know it's a loss. I know all of us want to sing country roads and we want to win every single game, but the team fought tonight. They showed fight and they're not laying down, and they could have done that weeks ago and they haven't. And I think there's more positives than negatives in this one. I think as a West Virginia fan, I'm encouraged. Remember, this is year one. Rich Rod said before the season, year one is always the hardest year to win. So the fact that we showed fight tonight, I'm encouraged. All right, and then let's talk about what it means. So what it means is no bowl game, which again stinks. For me, it's kind of hard to believe that the season's going to end. There's one more game. The season has flown by, especially for me. I just started creating content in June, and I can't believe the season is down to the last game. It's really hard to believe that this is going to be it after one more. There's one more preview to get to. There's one more post game, and that's going to be a wrap. So that kind of stinks because a few weeks ago, I'd have been like, man, the season, get it over with. Let's get to the off season. But since the TCU game and this team has been building and playing better, I don't want this thing to end. It kind of sucks, they've been playing a lot better and they've been playing hard, and we've been seeing them get better each week. So the fact that it's going to end after next week kind of stinks. But it is what it is. We have to kind of move on. The future is bright, though. I think that with Scotty Fox and Sincere Bowers and Hubbard, and we don't even have Jaheim White right now, and Jaden Bray and Cam Vaughn, the future is bright. And if we can hit on the portal and get another guy for Cam Vaughn, if we can retain him, and we can fix the offensive line, and we can find more dogs on defense, man, we have the pieces here. And Rich Rodriguez struggled that first year back then. So if you've watched this team in the last few years, I think we opened up some eyeballs. We had some signature wins. I think people are starting to get the respect of West Virginia. I had so many phone calls from people after the game saying, you know what, they look way different than the Neil Brown teams. So we're going to get better. It's kind of cool. Koo's Corner. So Koo's is, one of the guys, one of the OGs in the game. I absolutely love Koo's, and I appreciate his support. Absolutely love his channel. I think he's the best guy that does Mountaineer content. He said, so frustrating, brother. I feel you there, man. I watched your show, and I always do my show after yours because I don't have as big of an audience as you do, and I like to hear your takes before I take mine. So it is frustrating. We all want to win, but it'll get better, and I'm confident that it's going to get better. And he said, Pitt fans make it worse. I can't deal with those idiots. Hey, Coos, listen, man, Pitt, I'm going to get to Pitt in a second. You keep watching because I'm going to talk about Pitt and make some good points on Pitt in a second. Dude, they are so irrelevant in this conversation. They are loathing right now because we've beat them in football. We beat them in basketball with 2 first-year head coaches. I mean, just think, this is going to be the worst that it's going to be for West Virginia, right? I don't think that we're going to have another season where we win 4 games in a long time, and I truly believe that. And then this is Ross Hodge's first season. If we get the kid tomorrow to commit, things are only going to build. So Pitt fans, I think they're concerned because you see who they're going to play the next 2 weeks. They're probably going to lose out. I'm not even worried about Pitt at all. All right, speaking of that, let's get into this. So let's get into 2 other topics not related to West Virginia before we get off of here. So James Franklin is in early talks with Virginia Tech. So he has recruited the Virginia area really well at PSU. Tyler Warren, Tyler Rojas, the list goes on. So the only reason why I don't think why it wouldn't work at Virginia Tech. Why they wouldn't take him is because they just had Brett Pry, and Brett Pry is under the James Franklin coaching tree. But let's be real. Is Brett Pry James Franklin? No. This makes total sense. I could see Virginia Tech taking James Franklin and winning a bunch of games and rebuilding that program. I think this would be a great hire for them, and I think it's a good situation for him. Instead of going to the SEC where you're going to have massive games each and every week, which he struggles with, you're going to go to a winnable ACC that I think is very mediocre, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's as good as the Big 12. I think this is a good hire if they make this move for sure. And then the other thing is it's going to be a major pain in the butt for West Virginia if I'm being real. There's going to be a lot of recruiting battles between us and Virginia Tech, between the Western Pennsylvania guys, the Virginia guys. James Franklin is a program builder, so we want Virginia Tech to not be great. I know I respect their fans a lot because they're just like us. They're blue-collar fans. They respect their team. They show up, but they're a rival, and it scares me what he could do there. So if this happens, I don't love it. I wish he was kind of like in Auburn or Florida. And he has a good track record, right? He's rebuilt Vandy. He's rebuilt PSU. Kuz said almost heaven and Catholics. Yeah, the game day show was great this morning. And then he said Pitt is down bad. Yeah, Kuz, they're down so bad. And I know, I just know. I knew it today coming in, and we're going to talk about this on the next segment. They're probably going to lose out. It was all smoke and mirrors. They didn't beat anybody leading up to this point. They're clowns, and so is their coach, and we're going to talk about that next. So let's talk about Pat Narduzzi for a second. So if we remember, 1 year ago, Pat Narduzzi was making all these claims about Neil Brown and like throwing shade at Neil Brown because he made the comment, well, did you have fun? Did you enjoy the weather? Did you have a good time? And he was like kind of making jokes on his press conferences and social media. But then Pitt has College Game Day come to their campus, and you have a major opportunity versus a blue blood coming to your program. And he was asked if it was a must-win. He said, absolutely not. It's not an ACC game. I'm glad you brought that up. It's not an ACC game. I'd gladly get beat by 103 or 110 in that game. They could put 100 up on us as long as we win the next two after that. It's like, dude, like you can throw shade at our coach for talking about the weather and people showing up through optimism, but then you talk about going to a game where College Game Day is going to be there versus a blue blood program, and you're okay getting beat by 100. I know if our coach said that, people would have a field day, especially if it was Neil Brown saying that. So you would never see Rich Rod say something like that, right? So, and look at their schedule. Honestly, look at Pitt's schedule. Let's have this conversation before we get off of here. They beat Duquesne, Central Michigan. They lost to us. They lost to Louisville. They beat Boston College. They beat Florida State, who was ranked at the time, but they've gone downhill. Syracuse stinks. NC State's not good. Stanford's not good. And they got crushed today by Notre Dame. If West Virginia had the schedule, I think we're definitely in a bowl game. That's not even a question. And if Pitt had our schedule, how many wins would they have? They got exposed today, and I don't see them winning the last two games. I don't see them winning at Georgia Tech. I don't see them beating Miami either. It was all smoke and mirrors. I can't believe Game Day chose them today, but I'm not concerned about Pitt. We beat them in football with one of our worst West Virginia teams that we're going to see, and we beat them in basketball, and I absolutely love it. ESP. Pitt. I have a lot of comments. Coop said, hold on. I have a lot of comments here. All right. He said West Virginia versus Virginia Tech is going to be a rivalry. Or he said West Virginia versus Virginia rivalry next year is going to be sick, though. Yeah, UVA is doing good, but I like our chances in year 2 of Rich Rod at Charlotte. I was at the last Charlotte game versus Tennessee. West Virginia is going to show out for that one with the fans. But the Virginia Tech rivalry versus West Virginia, I would love to see get built back up. I said, Kuz said, I agree. Franklin can recruit his tail off. Yeah, James Franklin, say what you want. He can recruit. And I think one interesting thing that we need to talk about is what is Penn State going to do with their head coach, right? Because all the coaches are signing, right? Mike Elko signed an extension. They wanted Matt Rule. He signed an extension. Brahms probably off the table. Are they going to get Brian Hartline or Dirkowitz at this point? I'd be very nervous if I was a Penn State fan because I feel like all the coaches that they were talking about getting, they haven't gotten, and it's super interesting to see what's going to happen at Penn State. I said I think some other teams are going to be in the mix for Franklin. Yeah, Kuz. I think if I was Florida or Auburn or Arkansas, I would be offering Franklin a lot of money because this coaching search is insane. There's so many programs, and it's going to be very interesting to see the musical chairs that happen. And I think this helps West Virginia because don't forget the National Signing Day, the early signing day is December 3rd. That's right around the corner. And a lot of these places can't make decisions until the other teams are out of the championship. They're out of the playoffs. So this could only help West Virginia. If Daboll, I saw one that said Daboll going to Penn State. If that happened, I think that would be so funny because I'm a Giants fan. But Daboll's kids do go to Penn State, so that would definitely be interesting. I got a couple other comments. So he got in with you're talking about John Waffle, right? So a few weeks ago, he commented on one of my live streams, and I said, I think I officially made it as a YouTuber when that guy commented on one of my shows. So he's definitely a troll. We try not to worry about him, but again, I think West Virginia's in the right track. I'm not worried about the loss today at all. I think that's all I got, guys. We went for 41 minutes. I got to go be a dad upstairs to my 2 kids. I appreciate you. We talked about a lot of fun stuff tonight, man. I really appreciate all you guys. A lot of the same people commenting. Awesome to see Kuz hop in here. He's a legend. So that's definitely a cool moment for me, him commenting on my live stream. So I really appreciate you guys. Let's go Mountaineers. It will get better. There's brighter days ahead. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of the games. We'll talk to you guys next.